It was so bad over there that they actually shut down in Beijing like 70% of coal-burning plants for the Olympics because they didn't want people to see how bad it actually was.
I like how China can drill off our shores because they're drilling oil rigs off the Gulf Coast, and they do slant drilling to where they're not like over the oil well that's actually in our waters or in our territories. They do slant drilling where they'll go just off the territorial lines and then dig their drill and then do a slant line and suck the oil out of our wells. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Here's something else.
Iraq was doing it to Kuwait.
Here's something else, and actually Dustin brought it up, and it's what about polar bears? They say they're going to be extinct within 20 years because of global warming.
Yeah, because they're losing the land that they live at. You know, if it happened over a 200-year time, maybe the animals would be able to adapt better. But it's happening so quick that the animals aren't able to adapt to it.
I agree. Dustin, you're on if you want to chime in, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I brought it up. And then they're also canceling the cruise lines where they did down in the Arctic because they got so many of the big glaciers like melting and breaking off that it's not safe for them to have the boats go in there anymore.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Those things you can tip a boat over when you get like a big sheet that falls off of like a 300-foot, it's 300 foot high. It's 50 feet wide. That drops into the ocean and you're like a mile from it. That can take your boat out. Yep. I don't care if you're a cruise line, even a cruise liner.
Yeah, they've been and they're actually limiting the amount of people that can actually go to Antarctica anymore per year.
That's insane.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I forget what the number was.
But
yeah.
They have to get on a waiting list.
Yeah, they only are going to allow I think it was something like 3,000 people or something like that to actually step foot on Antarctica a year.
Yeah, I'm telling you, that one, when you got Greenland and Antarctica both melting at the same time, which has never, ever happened before. I was watching a show on Discovery, and they were taking these core samples and analyzing them, and never once have both of them been melting at either time. It was always one or the other. Now we got them both melting at the same time, so we really screwed up our ecosystem.
Here's another thing in the chat room. Alex R. wants to know, do you believe that if global warming becomes a bigger issue, that more people will stop driving cars?
No. I think they'll change the cars to get their 41 miles per gallon, but we want to burn corn, we want to do ethanols, but now we just realized that corn emits more CO2s than coal does.
Wow.
And anything that's electric. I mean, you have some of your like hydroelectric, like the Hoover Dam. That spins turbines that creates electricity. You got a couple of windmills, like 0.01% in the world that you get your electricity from. But we get all of our electricity by burning coal. That's how we get it. And there's no other way. There's no other way around it. Those batteries that they put in the hybrid cars, there's a lot of coal going into the process of making that battery. And the battery, and what the car dealers don't tell you is those batteries are $5,000, and you got to replace them every couple of years.
Wow, that's insane.
People are not going to start driving less.
Also with ethanol,
like 4 gallons.
Also, like with burning their corn-based fuels, that they were saying that it would take 90 cornfields just to do one trip from New York to Paris. 90 cornfields for one jetliner. It's not feasible.
Right, that's only 3,000 miles.
How are you going to feed your people and fuel them off of corn when it takes 90 cornfields?
Well, that's exactly why the price of corn had gone up in the last year was for that exact reason. But yeah, you got to feed them. You can't feed them and fuel the car too with them. Very good point, David.
Makes sense to me. I mean, there's just so much things that we could do to make the world better when it comes to saving the earth through global warming and everything. It's just nobody's doing what they should.
Well, because it's not profitable yet. yet, but it will get profitable. Like, you know, we need to use the sun more. We need to put solar panels all throughout the whole Southwest, because Obama's changing the grid for our electric grid is so antiquated, it's ridiculous. We have all this coal that's making this electricity, but by the time you transfer it from wherever the electricity started, you lose like 30-40% of it by the time it gets to your house. So we need to make a whole new infrastructure to make it more efficient, and that's what Obama's talking about right now is changing our electricity grid, so maybe only lose like 5% of the electricity once you've made it to get it to the point where it is.
I was actually going to... Oops, sorry, go ahead, Baby Doll.
Oh, I was going to ask you, just to kind of change the subject, is with the digital TV going from analog TV, you know, where you could turn on your television just about anywhere, to now you're going to have the digital converter boxes or the coaxial cable come into your houses. What kind of theories you had on that? Because I had a friend of mine pointed out that it was just like, wonder if there's like a mass emergency and the communication has been cut off. Because with everyone having cell phones now and no analog TV, you know, where you can just turn on your TV, hardly anyone has like a transistor radio anymore. What's going to happen if we have a mass emergency? How is the news going to get to the people if you're like stuck off in the middle of nowhere?
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Here's a question for you. It's from Adam C. It says, and this is to Sandman. It says, could you ask how he feels about replacing patrol cars with hydrogen cars?
Yeah, the best part about hydrogen is that water comes out of your gas pipe. But the whole thing is that the hydrogen technology isn't as up there. They're really not even thinking about it as a viable alternative right now. Well, because you'd have to put like all the different you'd have to change like all the gas stations to like hydrogen gas stations. I mean, maybe in 50 years, 100 years, yeah, but I don't see it in the near foreseeable future. Baby Doll, any thoughts on that?
I'm pretty much the same way. Technology has got to catch up with the needs of what we actually need right now. It's got to catch up.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Well, luckily we're getting twice as smart. It's like back in the 1900s, we were getting in the early 1900s, we were getting twice as smart every 20 years. Now we're getting twice as smart every 5 years. So if you really think about it, in the next 20 years, it's going to be like the Jetsons.
Yeah. Also, another thing that was sent to me in a private message from Dustin, he wanted me to let you know that half of Milwaukee is powered by wind now.
Yeah, I know that. I was reading about that in my Discover magazine. How big's the wind farms? Ask him.
Actually, I will wait for an answer. I know that he's listening to the show, so he can just shoot me an answer. But yeah, I mean that's great that they're starting to do more wind stuff instead of doing it all the other ways that they've been doing it.
Yeah, but it takes a lot to build those. You know how big those windmills are?
They're huge.
Are 300, 400 feet high. That's how big they are, and you got to put a lot of money into it. And it's kind of like wind is kind of like solar. It's not going to blow all the time. Wind's